Hey, welcome back. Hope you're having an excellent day. Today we are talking about sound design. I'm going to show you a really fun and quick way to make an interesting sound source, then a couple of ways to manipulate and transform that into something completely different. Let's get stuck right in. So I made this really quick loop as the basis of our track. I'll show you what that sounds like. Really simple loop made with the usual stuff, a few percussion samples from my sample pack. I used my hypnotic bass generator here again for the sub and bass frequencies. Then there's a few different sound effects, one of which is my stereo tool, which you can see here. Both of those tools and sample packs are available on my Gumroad. I'll link that in the description below. But let's make a new sound. The first thing I'm going to show you is less of a technique and more of just a fun, silly way to get a sound source. I'm using an external plugin from Arturia here, but you can do the same thing with any Ableton instrument. I'll briefly show you how. And the method I'm using is just fiddling with the keyboard on a plugin or in a MIDI clip, like I'll show you in a second. But I was fiddling around with this plugin earlier today and just fiddled with the keyboard, and I thought, you know what, that could make a good sound source for a sound design session. I literally just went like this. Now to achieve this in Ableton, all you need to do is have the piano roll open on a MIDI clip and switch on this little headphone icon here. And then you can fiddle with it here. Let's use this sound source to demonstrate the main topic of today, which is time stretching and sample manipulation. What I've done is created another audio channel here and made sure that it's receiving audio from the pad. Turn the monitor in and turn record on, and then as long as we're recording from this clip, it should be receiving the audio from the pad. So I'm going to hit record, open up this preset, and just fiddle with the keyboard for a bit. So we've got our audio sample here. Within the audio clip, we've got this section over here, which has a bunch of different models that we can use to shape and manipulate the sample. I don't actually know how all these models work. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to fiddle with these and show you what's possible when it comes to time stretching and sample manipulation. But let's start with texture, and we're going to use these parameters to stretch and change the artifacts and feeling of the sample over time. And yeah, I'm just going to fiddle with that for a bit and show you what this method is capable of doing. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm not going to fiddle with that too much. You can see my settings over here. I've used this texture setting and fiddled with the grain size and the flux, and also stretch the sample out to 500 BPM. When you record something at a slower BPM and then stretch it out as if it's playing at a much faster BPM, you get these interesting little textures and artifacts in your sample, because the time stretching algorithm within Ableton can only stretch the sample so far, and it's got to fill in those spaces, and it's taking little pieces of the audio sample that weren't there when they were playing at a much slower BPM. That's about as good as I can explain that, but the result is much more important in my opinion. But what we're going to do now is something called resampling. So we're going to take what I just did there, add an effect to it, resample it into another channel, and then manipulate it again. So I'll come up here and create a new audio channel, make sure the audio is coming from that channel that we just created, monitor in, record in, and I added this shifter here to add some ring modulation before we record it into the new audio channel. So this is what it sounds like with the ring modulation. Really cool. But let's record that into our new audio track. And we've got a new iteration of it in this audio clip here, which we can manipulate again. Let's use a different model here. Maybe something I haven't used before, perhaps tones. And you know what, I might actually shorten this one and try and crush the sample a bit and see what result we get. But I'll shut up and fiddle with that for a bit and then explain what I did. So I fiddled around a bit and I ended up using this repitch option here. And we got a pretty interesting result. I'll show you exactly what this sounds like. Really happy with that. It's like this little textural ear candy sound that would be perfect for like a riser or a transition or something. But I'm going to show you one more technique. I'm going to save that sample because it's perfect as it is, but we're also going to do some rhythmic modulation, just so it sort of fits in with the track that I'm working with at the moment. But I'll show you another technique that I love to do when I want to create some random rhythmic effects. So we've got that sound we just created, and I've prepared this effects chain. Zooming in here, we've got an auto filter with I believe it's called a band pass filter, then an LFO with a rate of 16th notes set to random. And I love mapping random 16th LFOs to filters to get sort of trippy kind of brain massaging sounds. So we'll go ahead and map that LFO to our frequency. I might turn down the depth a little bit, maybe to like 45%, and then just shift it up a little bit so we're getting a lot of those higher frequencies. Let's add a bit of reverb, a bit of delay, and hear what that sounds like with the rest of our track. Really happy with that result, honestly. I think it fits the track really well, and I don't think I'm going to do anything else to it. Hope you enjoyed that video and saw something that maybe you haven't considered before. Really just wanted to give a bit of an insight into my sound design process and some of the different things that I get up to. If you like these kind of videos, I've got new stuff just like this every single week, so subscribe to the channel if you want more. Thanks so much for tuning in, and stay creative. Bye.